story. Genesis 6, and you also hear more about them in Numbers. I think 4 times you hear about the Nephilim in the Bible, and it was a missed opportunity to explore this. He didn't explore it, and he just made a mockery of it. It just makes me ill that he did this. A question about these beings. They tried to thwart the creation of God, according to the Bible and many texts, as what their purpose was to thwart it. Did any of these beings survive the flood, and are they among us now?
That's a great question, and let me address this. That in my book, The Cosmic Chess Match, I posit to the reader that the reason why the Nephilim are there, the reason why the fallen angels are doing this, is because there's a prophecy that goes back into an earlier chapter of Genesis, and this really what Aronofsky should have done. And it talks about the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman, and then there'll be enmity, there'll be war between these two seeds. So now we see a seed war, and from that we get the promise and the prophecy of the Messiah. And so now the fallen one, the head fallen angel, Satan, knows that someone is coming who will crush his head. And he doesn't like that. And so all he has to do for checkmate in this so-called cosmic chess match is to wipe out the human genome, pollute the human genome. And if he does that, Messiah won't be born as checkmate. And guess what? He almost succeeds, except for the 8 people along, in the ark. And again, Aronofsky completely out to lunch on this, because only one of the sons of Noah has a wife, and yet the biblical narrative tells us very specifically that there's a vetting process with the Most High God, who says and points it out with great specificity: Noah, you, your wife, your son, and their wives, plural. Mm-hmm. So everybody's on board already, and of course Aronofsky completely misses this idea, the idea that Noah is pure in all his generations. He's not contaminated by the Nephilim, the whole mischief going on between the fallen angels and the women of earth and contaminating the bloodline. This is the reason. And, he just misses the whole point of the story. And what's interesting is, Yeshua, Jesus, points to us and tells us, we like the days of Noah and I return, which immediately begs the question, what differentiates those days? And it is the presence of the Nephilim on the earth. It is the presence of the B'nai Elohim, the fallen angelic host of heaven, having sex with the women. And when they do that and create this unholy hybrid known as the Nephilim, this brings about the judgment. And look, in my work, we constantly go between antiquity and modernity, and the two overlap. It gets bizarre. If your listeners aren't really familiar with this stuff, it can sound really, really crazy, and I get that. But having traveled in it for over 25 years now, I can tell you in just one sentence that there is a definitive link between the days of Noah and what is going on in the so-called UFO abduction phenomena, which is happening in real time right now. And just a thumbnail sketch of that, that's when someone is taken against their will. Sometimes these abductions start when a person is 5 or 6 years old. They're taken aboard a craft, sperm is taken, ovum is taken. The women become pregnant. 3 months later, they're abducted again. The fetus is taken out. Later on, 4, 5, 6 years later, they're re-abducted, shown this hybrid being. We hear the story over and over and over again. And you say, well, L.A., that's really interesting, but where the heck is the physical evidence? Well, in our Watcher series, Watcher 7 specifically, that is called physical evidence, UFOs, physical evidence. And we go into the lab. It's actually a whole procedure that we did with this man, who we call Ed, for lack of a better, that's not his real name. We're just keeping his identity, under wraps, because he doesn't want to go public with this. But he was abducted at 5 or 6 years old, and then multiple times after that. And he said he thought he had an implant in his leg, and he went and got it x-rayed, and sure enough, there's something there. And this is where we enter the story. And we took him to Dr. Roger Lear, who was our very close friend, mm-hmm. and was in all of the Watcher series, and passed away about 3 or 4 weeks ago now.
Yes.
4 weeks this Friday. Hard to believe it's been a month already. And, died of a sudden heart attack while in a doctor's office to get his foot looked at, his ankle looked at, which he's been not doing very well for like the last year. A steady, long, slow decline, and finally succumbed to it and had a massive heart attack and died. They weren't able to revive him. But we took him, and it's just a great loss, and we express our sympathy and empathy to the family. And both Richard, my business partner and co-producer of the Watcher series, and I went to the funeral. Whitley Strieber was there, as others. in the UFO community, and it's just a great loss. We've lost a great friend.
Mm-hmm.
But we went to Dr. Lear's with this man by the name of Ed, not his real name, and we took an X-ray of this thing, and sure enough, there was the implant. And a couple of weeks later, we sent Ed over and had a CAT scan of it, and we checked the CAT scan, and sure enough, there's the implant. We took a Gauss meter, which measures magnetic field. It was registering 7.5 on the Gauss meter. We took a stud finder, very simple, buy it at Home Depot. And guess what? It registers metallic objects. Well, put the stud finder near the mark, and the arrows click in, and sure enough, there's the mark. And finally, we took him to the doctor, Dr. Matriciano, who was going to perform the surgery about a month before the scheduled date of the surgery. And Matriciano had an ultrasound machine with a little wand coming out, put some liquid there on the man's leg where the implant is, and within 2 or 3 minutes found the implant. Oh, there it is, right there. Oh, we'll see in about a month, and we'll do the implant. So the day of the implant removal comes, and the patient is there, Dr. Lear is there, Matriciano is there, my partner Richard Shaw is there, business partner Richard Shaw is there. We've got 2 camera crews. There's 15 to 20 witnesses in another room watching a monitor. There's a nurse. I mean, all of these people. It's a whole deal. And we go to find the implant, and it's not there. And Dr. Matriciano spends 1 hour, about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, exploring this man's a 3 by 8 inch section of this man's leg, going back and forth with the wand of the ultrasound. He can't find it. We take the Gauss meter. We know where the implant was. It's shown up. We've seen it before. We've got the X-ray there. We put the X-ray over the man's, a copy of the X-ray over the man's knee, and sure enough, this is where it should be. Put a little magic marker there. Go over it again with the wand. Can't find it. Take the Gauss meter. Gauss meter's flat line, not working. The stud finder's all over the place for some reason. And at this point, we realize that something's going on here. It's high strangeness. It's like, wait a minute. This thing was here a month ago, and now all of a sudden it's gone. And Dr. Lear, at this point, Dr. Matriciano said to Dr. Lear, maybe we should go get another X-ray now. And they were ready to do this. And at this point, Rich has been praying, and I get this little tap on the shoulder from what I would call the Holy Spirit, because that's what it is. It's the Spirit of the living God. And I was told to pray and do it now. And I said, okay, guys, this is going to sound really weird, but I got to pray and I got to do it now. So it's a short little prayer, and I just launched into it. I didn't wait for permission. And it was just this: Father, if there is something or someone cloaking or hiding this device, this object, I pray that you would break that and reveal it to us and do it soon. That was pretty much verbatim of what I said. Guess what? 3 minutes later, less than 3 minutes later, the object shows up on the ultrasound. The doctor can't believe it. Everyone in the room, most people in the room understand what has just happened, and we took the object out, and now it's Monday. This was on a Saturday. It's a Monday. We're back in Seal Lab with the object, and we're opening it up and looking at it under scanning electron microscope, and I take Dr. Lear out into the hallway and I say, Dr. Lear, I just want to make sure that you understood what happened on Saturday. And he looked at me, his eyes got wide, and he said, I now believe that there's a supernatural component to the phenomena, and I'm going to tell Whitley Strieber. Mm-hmm. Whether he did or not, I don't know. But it was incredible, because what we saw there was we called upon the God of the universe, the creator. At least they get that part right in the Noah movie. We called upon the creator, and he shut down whatever was cloaking it, and revealed it to us, and did it within 3 minutes after I prayed. It was literally spiritual warfare 101. That's the first thing that happened. The second thing, realization, is we realized that whoever was doing this knew what we were doing. In other words, we were being monitored, and that's incredibly sobering. We were being monitored, as obviously the patient and everybody else. The entities that controlled this thing and put it in this man's leg knew what we were up to and didn't want us to get the implant. And so it was cloaked. It was hidden. Now, whether it was hidden, I don't know how that works. I have no idea whether they're messing with the machines or they somehow cloak the device. I don't know. That's still a mystery to us. All I know is when I prayed, we broke that power by another power which is far greater than that. And it was spiritual warfare 101. We found the implant. We took it out. We took it to the, Seal Lab, and we did a series of tests on it, which, of course, were fascinating. Right. But the moment was not lost on anyone in that room. And I found that incredibly sobering, and it points to the God of the Bible. And what's interesting is, and you're speaking of, again, another another text that we get, another biblical text where we read that the sons of Anak, the Anakim, were in the Promised Land. What's interesting, and I've written about this extensively in my book, The Cosmic Chess Match, and again, people, this has really been hidden and sort of hiding in plain sight type of deal for thousands of years, and only recently has anyone really begun to examine what happened thousands of years ago. My mentor, the late Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's book, The Omega Conspiracy, talks about the Anakim, talks about these race of giants that were in what is known as the Promised Land, or more commonly today known as the Levant, where Israel was given a mandate by a loving, holy God. See, this is where it gets weird. Aronofsky goes back and does the same thing and makes him look genocidal. It's not what's going on here, but we get the same type of a mandate given to Joshua and Caleb, to the tribes of Israel, to go in and wipe out the Anakim, the Rephaim, the Nephilim, the Zamzumim, the Emims, all these different tribes which are named that are inhabiting the Levant. Why the death sentence? Where's the grace and mercy? And it's incomprehensible. We can't understand it unless we factor in the Nephilim. Once we factor in that these are hybrid beings, the soulless ones, the progeny of the fallen angelic host of heaven and the women of earth, that was an abomination, never supposed to be there. Oh, I get it. That's who we're dealing with. And then all of a sudden everything sort of like dominoes, just all sorts of fall in place. What's interesting, in my book, Armature of a Nephilim, I did a little sort of a sidebar talking about when one of the prophets, Jonah, goes to Nineveh. Mm-hmm. And the reason why he's sent to Nineveh is to make these guys stop what they're doing. Nineveh, the people that inhabited the city, basically invented the word barbarian. I mean, these people are absolutely bloodthirsty. When you got to Nineveh, the first thing you would see is heads on a stake circling the city. Isn't that lovely? What an image, you know. All these heads on a stake, just heads on a stake. You know, decapitated heads on a stake around the city. And then They would flay their victims and put the skins on the walls of the city. I mean, these people are absolutely, it's nightmarish. It's barbaric. Well, God sends Jonah. You know, there's the grace and mercy, and the whole city repents. Okay, we get it. We're sorry. And judgment is not meted out to that city. Grace and mercy is extended. With the Nephilim, no grace, no mercy.